And we tried to do that, and we tried to do it, and tried to fit the budget. We looked at different ways to build a Sally Port. These are things that the police need, and I tell you, I'll tell anyone in this room, I'd say it to anybody. If you really want to see what the police station needs, go and visit them, because you will be amazed at the dungeon. That's the best word I can use for that place. Low ceilings, it's like a rat maze going in there. From one room to the other, little doorways and whatnot. Go and talk to the chief. He'll be glad to show you around. You will be amazed at the condition of that building. I really will.
I mean, I understand that the building it's old, and I don't think anyone can argue the benefit. I mean, you look at other communities like North Providence, you look at East Greenwich, they all have public safety complexes. And I understand that the comp plan talks about it now as we voted that in. But we're talking about an issue as to the bond, and I would be curious to see the bond language and what specified, what exactly was the language and the terminology. I don't know if it's in the packet that was provided to us tonight. I mean, there was, maybe that's a question we should have asked to put in the packet, but no one has ever provided that since I've been up here, and I think it would be helpful in the guidance of determining some of the outcomes of this project.
When this was issued, when the bond was issued, I got this right from the PBIC, the language of the bond, and what it said. I would authorize the town of North Smithfield to issue $5.2 million in bonds and notes to finance the repair of the Kennedy Building, Memorial Town Hall, and Municipal Annex in order to consolidate municipal and school administration functions. Shall an act be passed in the 2014 session of the General Assembly entitling an act authorizing the town of North Smithfield to finance the repair and rehabilitation of the Kennedy Building, Memorial Town Hall Building, and Municipal Annex to achieve efficiencies in the consolidation of municipal and school administration functions in accordance with the plan adopted by the Town Council by the issuance of not more than $5.2 million in bonds and or notes that be approved. And under that it said, consolidate both school administration and all town municipal offices, both from the Annex Building and Memorial Town Hall into the Kennedy Building. Update, upgrade, and improve the Kennedy Building to today's standards. Repurpose the entire Annex Building for the North Smithfield Police Headquarters, complying with federal and state regulations to include technologies, communications, enhanced record facilities, and evidence preservation. A continually growing town population and business development leads to a high demand on the North Smithfield Police Department for services and operations. That's what we got from the PBIC when we looked at this, and that's what we were trying to meet. And we knew that we had a $900,000 budget, and we also have a $500,000 contingency that to date we still haven't touched. We're still doing Kennedy within the $3.5 million. So in theory we have $1.4 million. And so the direction that Sakosha was given when we were developing bid specs was, we understand that it's $900,000, and we were running into a wall where the police were saying, this is not enough. It's not enough just to do this, this, and this. And so we made the decision to increase the scope and find out what was going to be there. And we could go back and pull it apart if need be, like as a shopping list, and let them know, okay, this is what this costs, this is what this costs, this is what this costs. This is all we can do. Which one do we want to do? And we didn't get to that point because it was so far out of whack that the council threw out all the bids. They rejected all the bids.
Mr. President, so what that follows, we just said. So we had a $900,000 budget. Now I'm hearing there's another $500,000 figure, that's 1.4.
Well, there's a contingency that we haven't touched.
Okay.
So it's potentially it's money that you can use on.
I also heard Mr. Flowery say do what we can to shore up that building. Talking about pushing.
Thanks.
Yes,
No, it is.
Could you hear what I said to everybody? No. Basically, so we've been talking about $900,000 to invest in rehabilitation of Bushy, and now with a contingency of another $500,000 possible, we're at 1.4. Earlier this evening, we heard Mr. Flowery, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Flowery, which is that the voters want to see something happen to that building to invest some money into it, making it
extend the life.
I'm sorry.
Extend the life.
Extend the life, yeah, shoring up the roof or whatever it takes. So it's promising. Hopefully we can get something to happen over there. You know, I see Mr. Clifford keeps raising his hand, and I really hope that we would acknowledge him. Right? Do we need a motion to do that, or?
Well, we're trying to answer his questions, and it's not going to be a back and forth. You know,
You can answer the question, though.
we agreed to a set of rules. let's try to follow them. If Mr. Clifford has no questions after, we'll address it.
Yeah, okay, you will, thank you. We will, thanks. So if I may, there were a few points that Mr. Clifford made. There's four of them pretty much in a row, at least that I could write down. Mr. Sakosha, you recommended the Councilor Corporation for the work at Kendall B, is that correct?
They were the apparent low bidder, yes.
Okay. And then, following Mr. Clifford's questions, is there a sewer line in the elevator shaft over there?
When they excavated for the elevator, there was waste lines, it's semantics, I guess, waste sewer. But it was hit, yes. It was, I was no way knowing it was there, obviously.
So where did Mr. Clifford has plans that shows that it is there?
If through the chair, if someone could direct, I respected everyone else's time. If I could have some mutual respect, I'm hearing a lot of constant chatter in my back of my ear on questions being asked of me in multiple directions.
Okay, my questions, please. Okay, so were there plans that showed the sewer line before Councilor hit it?
No,
No.
it was an existing condition. The sewer line has been there for 100 years.
An existing condition. Okay. Now, also, it was commented that the elevator pit continuously fills with water. Is that true?
There's water being pumped out of the basement right now. The design team understand that there is an architect of record that works for Council Corporation. That's his job. They have, my understanding, waterproof. They had a leak within the pit. They understood recently that the leak has been fixed. The pump has been shut off. So the issue should be fixed. We'll obviously verify that for the town. And we'll have to report back.
So help this layperson understand, not the trades. So if there seems to be a history of a leak and it's been waterproof and shut off, will there be a pump in there that'll switch on should water start to fill that pit again?
By code, the elevator pit has to have a sump pump in it, and it's in there.
Thank you.
Just for the record though, the water was not going into the pit.
Correct.
The groundwater was outside of the pit.
Correct.
They were dewatering the hole to make sure that the waterproofed the elevator shaft.
We don't know how much was contributing by the water leak that was in the road at the same time. There was water main that had broke.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So existing conditions, a water pipe, such as a sewer or whatever we're calling it, there's no drawings that indicate that a pipe ran below that?
We had no existing drawings of the building. No as-built, original building drawings.
Okay.
Just to be clear, everyone keeps talking about a sewer line and maybe it's semantics that it's a waste line. It was a line that wasn't being used. It was a line that just ran through there and we had to eliminate it just because it was in the middle of the hole. It wasn't like there was stuff being used and going through it. All of those bathroom facilities that were shut down in Buffalo, there was nothing going through this line.
No, I was just curious.
Water that was being pumped out of there was groundwater.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. It was groundwater. We never hit. We were pumping sewer. If that's the impetus of the question, that's absolutely true. It was groundwater.
Okay, that was my concern, that it was sewer coming in from somewhere.
It wasn't.
All right.
The question was where. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm sure Mr. Sakosha can't answer this, but it was more of a legal question for bond compliance regarding the school department not moving in. So that's not for Mr. Sakosha. You got it. And again, I heard Mr. Sakosha say that it would be very, forgive me if I paraphrase you incorrectly, it's rare that you would have a 16 division breakdown for a job.
At bid day. When bids are submitted, it's extremely rare.
Okay. Thank you.
That was all the questions I had. I addressed the last two, the sewer line and the elevator shaft.
I hope I captured as many as I could.
Any other questions?
I had a question on asbestos
Is that,
Asbestos removal.
that's number 10? I'm sorry, number 11? Would that be number 11 on the division breakdown? Hazardous material remediation? Do you have this? You don't have it in front of you, do you?
I do not, but the asbestos removal at the police station, yes?
Well, yeah, well, I'm actually looking at both of them. I'm looking at Bushy currently, which is the police station.
Correct. The number was not identified separately, no.
Yeah, so you know, I'm looking at hazardous. So we have from EDS Construction $204,000. Track bill is $249. I'm dropping 249,000. We get over to Tower Construction $30,000, and then from Iron Construction $56,000.
Those are the bids.
Those are the original.
Those are the old bids. Those are not our bids.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have no knowledge of those bids, and it's not my information. That has nothing to do with the project I worked on. In the sense of the new project, that was history.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of get it from 216. So help me understand the process. If I were someone putting in a bid and I lowballed these figures and I was awarded the bid, then we find out that hazardous material is not $50,000, but $125,000. How do we address that?
So the bid documents we hired, I forget who the asbestos consultant was, I can certainly get you. Who was it?
Emery.
Emery, yes. Bob Emery, right? Rick, Bob? Mr. Emery. We hired Mr. Emery because we felt that the information wasn't sufficient from the previous reports. We had them redo the reports. We had them specifically identify the asbestos in each of the buildings. There was much more in the police station than there was in Kendall. So part of the scope, there's a significant report in the documents that were provided in the specifications that say where the asbestos is, what to do with the asbestos, how to take it out, what to do with the patching of the ceiling when it's done to make a safe condition for the police officers. So it's not an arbitrary, you can lowball, you cannot lowball. You have to understand, with all due respect, that these documents tell them what to do. It's not that it's an arbitrary situation. It's clear, especially with the asbestos, it was very clear as to what needed to be done. And Mr. Emery's report is in the specifications just for that purpose.
And that report was approved by the Department of Health.
Exactly.
Before it was submitted.
Yeah, I just had a little difficulty following this because as you said earlier, during the craziness of getting the numbers together, they just put anything in. I may be paraphrasing it incorrectly. No?
With all due respect, that is not what I said. What I said specifically is that asking for a 16-division breakdown at the time of bid becomes hectic. When we have done it in the past, and I'm not to say we've never done it, when it's been done, I hear complaints all the time. It's not reasonable for us to ask for that information on how much a window costs, how much a door costs, put all that information in on a specific sheet with some relative accuracy. That's why in our specifications, we say that we can ask for that information post-bid. So what you're looking at is information from a bid that I didn't prepare.
I know that. I'm just trying to
one of the complaints, frankly, was that there was not enough information to make a realistic bid. When I did talk to some of the contractors that bid the last job, I asked specifically what were the problems, why were these numbers so all over the place? One of the reasons was that, and especially with the asbestos, was not identified clearly as to what the scope of the work was. And that's why those numbers are all over the place.
When the town went back out to bid the second time, in the bid package, we broke out. We asked them, what's your base bid? And did we ask them for a breakout of the asbestos bid on that? Just so we knew what number they were looking at?
We wanted it.
I'm pretty sure we did.
Happy to look if we did.
Just so that we knew that we could go back and see.
Again,
one guy was at 30 and one guy was at, all they were at 90. That someone either didn't read the scope, or someone was missing something.
This is why
I know we asked for a breakout of it.
This is why I asked in advance. I've been probably more prepared. You guys I asked several times to the chair, give me some reasonableness.
I did submit some questions, by the way. I just want that to go on the record. I did submit some questions. So if they weren't communicated to you, to say that nobody did. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I just want to let people know I did submit questions, and I even asked for the questions that were asked by the members of the council to be included as well, so we can all be prepared. I just saw the clerk shaking her head. So questions potentially were asked and were submitted, so to say that they weren't is kind of a false statement right there. So just
Questions
there were some questions, so if you didn't get them, I don't know.
The questions that you asked were for.
Okay, yeah, just
And he's addressed most of them.
yeah, no, I know that. We asked some of them, so. I have one more, Mr. President, if it's okay. So I know a while back, I think it's 2014. I wasn't in town at that time, but 2014 when I was doing my research on this, I know it was spoken that there is a deed restriction to Kendall Deed about educational services being there. Do we know if the school department is not moving into this building, if that is being satisfied, and what is the implication? I don't know if that question can be.
That deed restriction is gone.
Okay.
That deed restriction is gone. It was removed by state law. You can't put that deed restriction on anymore.
It was a grandfather's
It was
name.
researched and it was verified. The bottom line is, we went to bond council to get an opinion, and bond council told us there needs to be school department functions in that building. They told us that. We designed it with school department in there. There was still space for them in there. I can't make them go there. You can't make them go there. Task force can't make them go there. We created space for them, just as the bond language said it does. I'm not happy that they're not going there either. We designed it so that we were consolidating functions. Those are the functions that can be consolidated in town government, is in finance. What the superintendent of schools does, there's no way you can combine those functions with the administrator. It just don't, it doesn't
No, I get that.
It doesn't line up.
No one would make that
But
assumption.
finances we felt was the function that could be, and we got a ruling from bond council that wrote the original bond that said, you can do this. It can be limited as long as the council approves and amended and adopts the new plan, which the previous councils did. We created the space for the business department community. I can't make them go there. If you want to start a legal challenge to push them there, then put it out there and go for it.
I was just asking a simple question. I wasn't advocating legal action as of yet. I was just curious as to how did that decision come that the school department was not, like, did they just wake up one day and say, we're not moving? That's what I was kind of getting at, is how did that decision come about? It seems no one can really answer this question, is why, and maybe we should have also included the school department in this meeting, as to why they decided not to go if the bond originally said it. And I know that the plans were changed and the technicality is there, but it still seems like people voted for something because there was going to be a result of this, and this has not happened. So you can argue that the consolidation of services doesn't exist, therefore these savings doesn't exist, because you're going to have unoccupied space in a building that's using electricity, that's using all this extra stuff that you're paying for that no one is utilizing because you're funding 2 buildings now, or 3 buildings. So I was just curious as to what direction did that decision, at what point in time did that decision get made, and why didn't we give more pushback at that time? I can understand if certain people don't want to go. I know that the superintendent likes to stay in the school, but at what point in time did we not, why didn't we have a conversation with the rest saying that we can consolidate other areas if needed? Or I'm just trying to find out the process. I can't wrap my head around it because I really haven't got an answer that seems satisfactory at this point.
I have an answer.
When we designed, when it was designed, the new scope to go out to bid, the superintendent, when we started going through it, the superintendent was in the basement with the secretary and the assistant superintendent. They were in the basement, in rooms in the basement, and we were told when we asked them and talked to them about it, they said, you can create office space for us, but we will not be there every day. So we would have been creating space and spending money, and no one would have been occupying the space. At that point, we changed direction. We always kept the business department open because that was where the consolidation was. It didn't make sense for us to consolidate and put someone in a building that wasn't going to be there every day. They was going to be vacant. And then it came about that EMA didn't have enough space and they didn't have the proper space in the police department. And so when this space opened up, we started talking about transitioning them over there. And it's a perfect fit for them over there, where we can line them up. With an emergency operations center, now that's going to be established over there and everything. That's where the little change went, but we've always honored the language of the bond, that the school department is gonna be there. And it's my intention that the school department should be there. I'm not arguing with you that they should be there. We've designed the space for them. They just need to decide to move in.
Tell you the answer.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I'd like to add something to this. As far as the
Can you use
police...
your microphone, Mrs. O'Hara?
So my mouth.
I know you can't use your slow. Recess, please.
All right. When this all started, the police had a list of things that they wanted because I didn't know what these carports and everything else was. And at the same time, he wanted Franconia out there. There was a big hubbub at that time. Trust me, I answered my phone multiple times to see why they had the tower there, everything else. But I guess the police wanted the entire building. So then, Mr. Branconia, for whatever reason, after complaining and being so upset, acted at a meeting like nothing was wrong and he was going there. It was assumed that the superintendent was going to be in that building. I was teaching at that time. He was going there. Fine, dandy. The word is, and I think consolidation of services.
Functions.
Functions. Thank you. And all of a sudden, when I was asking the people that move things, what are this move, what are they going to do until then when they were dismantling? They said, they're not going there. And I found out from the janitors who do all the moving. That's how I found out that they had no intention. They liked it here and they were going to stay here. It was not brought up at any meeting.